the September 15th, 2020 Common Council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Here.
Lorick.
Here.
Dukniak.
Here.
Toman.
Here.
Gale.
Here.
Guzikowski.
Here. Everybody, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, would you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we commence with the minutes, we'll ask our deputy clerk to read in the notice of video conferencing, please.
The City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency. This meeting, being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capabilities, was duly noticed per the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Members of the public have been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to the property owners. This meeting may also be viewed at the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record and proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the questions and answers function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested.
Thank you. That'll get us to the approval of minutes of September 1st, 2020. If everybody please take a look. When you're satisfied there's no omissions, errors, corrections, questions, motion please.
Kirkowski make a motion to approve the minutes of September 1st, 2020.
Next second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorick.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzikowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Our first item under new business is a resolution amending and supplementing a resolution authorizing the issuance and establishments and parameters for the sale not to exceed $4.75 million taxable waterworks systems revenue refunding bonds. Andrew or Ted? Who's got this one?
Mike Sullivan.
Oh, is Mike on? I don't see Mike on.
I am, sir.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you very much. This is a really good opportunity for us to refinance some of our existing debt surrounding the treatment plant in order to take advantage of really good interest rates now. As the council report states, it's a little over $800,000 would be the gross savings on this type of refinancing. It does not increase the length of the debt, so it stays at 2031 as it was before. And Emily Timmerman is here from Robert W. Baird to give a short presentation for you as well, a couple of slides to sort of describe this a bit better.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I'm having a little difficulty sharing my
If you should be able to share now.
Thank you. All right. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, like Mike said, the reason we're here is obviously because there's a great opportunity for refinancing some of the city's debt. Here's just a simple rate chart of historical taxable interest rates. And you can see just in 2020, rates have been steadily coming down. So we've been watching this issue, and we think now is a really good time to adopt a resolution that would set parameters so that we can sell this debt any day instead of waiting for a board meeting night. So here's just a brief summary of the issue. It would be about $4.7 million. Like we said, it would refinance the 2011 revenue bonds. It would mature in 2031, which is the same length of time as the current outstanding debt, so we're not extending it. Right now, the estimated rate would be 1.63% and about present value savings of $715,000. So down here we have two main parameters for the resolution that are what the board typically likes to focus on. So we're saying that the maximum interest rate for these new bonds would be 2.25%, and that the present value savings would have to be at least 10% of refunded par. And the simple timeline would be that tonight you consider the refinancing, adopt the parameters resolution that would give the city administrator the authority to sign off. Baird would go ahead and begin putting together the official statement. We'd get the bond rating in place. We'd start marketing the bonds. As soon as we have everything ready and the market is strong, we would go ahead and lock in rates. And then, as we stated, the city administrator would be the final sign off, and we could close 3 weeks later. Here's an illustration of the actual debt itself. So on the left, you can see this is the current 2011 issue. The yellow represents that those maturities are callable. And over here would be the new issue. And you can see over on the far right that we estimate the annual debt would be lower by $90,000. So gross savings of about $813,000. And we always like to present value that back to today's money, which would be about $715,000. So I'll pause there if anyone has any questions.
No, I don't think so, Emily.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of self-explanatory. We've done this before on the city end. Quite a bit of savings. Obviously, a prudent thing to do, in my opinion. So, questions, comments? No?
Danny,
Yeah, Ken.
Dan,
Go ahead.
is Melissa in the audience there, or Andrew?
Melissa's here and Andrew's on Zoom.
Okay, I just want to verify I can vote on this. If one of them two can give me a yea or nay on that.
Melissa? It's Baird.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Sorry.
He wants to verify that he can cast the vote because it's from the Baird organization and he's connected to Baird.
Is this just a pre-authorization, Melissa? It actually is not voting on the sale?
My understanding, this is it, Alderman Gale. This would be the pre-authorization to take advantage, I think, as our utility manager said, and as our Baird representative indicated, that when the time is right in the near future, we want to be able to move on that. So this would be the authorization. So I think that you would refrain from casting a vote to avoid any conflict.
Yeah, that's my my understanding too. All right, great, thanks.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Kirkowski will make a motion to adopt resolution number 12189-091520, a resolution amending and supplementing resolution number 8283-101591, authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $4,750,000 taxable waterworks system revenue refunding bonds, Series 2020, and providing for the payment of said bonds and other details and covenants with respect thereto.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman. Alderman Gale.
Abstain?
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. New business. Item 5 is consideration of a resolution extending the public health emergency in the city of Oak Creek in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus. This is something we've done a couple of times before. This extension would go out to the end of the year. Am I correct in that? To
That's correct.
December 31st. Once again, this enables us to go after anything financially we need to do. I think this is our third time around with this.
This would be the third extension, Mayor. And if I may, if the council decides to proceed with this resolution, it would allow you and city staff to be able to deal with the circumstances related to this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So in terms of this further extension, the purposes are just as the mayor said, in terms of any possible reimbursement for pandemic-related expenses, including this fall election potentially, but also to facilitate efficient decision-making for the city, to pivot as needed to best protect the health and the safety of our citizens and employees. While, as you have learned in the last 6 months, we need to be able to continue to move forward the best we can with typical and ongoing operations. So it is just that, and we internally thought that it would be best to take it out to at least that calendar date, knowing that this can come back before the council for any other amendment, resolution, or consideration before then.
Okay. Any questions? Kevin, is Janine still with us? Does she have a comment or a question?
Looks like she just disconnected.
Oh, okay. So if there aren't any questions, comments, we'll entertain a motion to extend.
Kirkowski make a motion to adopt resolution number 12188-091520, a resolution extending the public health emergency in the city of Oak Creek in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Item 6 is consideration of a motion to direct staff to draft an ordinance repealing and recreating Chapter 2 of the Municipal Code regarding committees, boards, and commissions, and bring the matter back for consideration at a public hearing. Who's going to start us off? Andrew?
Yeah, I can take that one, Dan. Thanks, Mayor and Council. Just going to share my screen here. I got to get past that very long resolution for the bond finance, so bear with me. And let me share my screen, Kevin. All right. I wish I could be there with you all, but I hope you can see the screen and you can hear me. Is that both true? Can you see the screen and can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much. As is stated in the staff report, we are following through on a strategic action plan item from our 2017-2020 strategic plan. And this is really a continuation of the discussion the Common Council had on August 18th, which the staff presented a summary of potential changes to the configuration of boards, committees, and commissions, as well as a lengthier analysis on the Water and Sewer Utility Commission. And if you can see the screen that I'm sharing, as a little bit of a background, the city's Chapter 2 ordinance is really broken up into 2 sections that deal with committees and commissions. The first section here before you is the standing committees of the Common Council. And we'll see later the second prong of that, or the second portion of our Chapter 2, is committees, commissions, and boards, committees, and commissions generally. So there's kind of 2 separate components of this. And we'll first deal with the standing committees of the Common Council. I would draw the council's attention to, well, backing up again, I was going to provide a summary for the council to kind of walk through this presentation or the red line version of this ordinance. But first of all, it was really just a codification, if you will, of the summary that is later on in your council packet tonight, but that we looked at last evening. So really that's the summary, but I will go through these changes. First and foremost, what we're doing, what we're proposing in this first section under standing committees is the elimination of the Capital Improvements Committee, the elimination of the Finance Committee, and the creation of a Personnel and Finance Committee, and the creation of a Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, consistent with our discussion the August 18th meeting. So when we were putting pen to paper a little bit, we noticed that the standing committees, specifically the Finance Committee, if you can see through the red line changes here, the Finance Committee was a little oddly constructed, I would say, a little uniquely constructed. The Finance Committee consisted of 3 aldermen, 1 citizen member, but it also pointed out 1 alternate member to vote when the citizen representative is not in attendance. And that's a little unique because you could set up a situation there where you had a 4-person committee and you had 2 votes. So that's a little unique to not have an odd number. So when we were looking at kind of the changes that I just mentioned, eliminating the CIP committee, eliminating finance, creating a combined Personnel and Finance Committee, and then creating the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, we wanted to make those consistent. So as you can see in the red line version here, the staff has prepared for discussion a Personnel and Finance Committee that has 3 alderperson representatives and 2 citizen members appointed annually by the mayor and approved by the council. So consistent to that, when we created and drafted this new Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, our best hunch, and that's what's for a lot of it is what a lot of is the discussion this evening, was, well, let's create that consistent with the Personnel and Finance Committee. And that, again, 3 alderpersons and 2 citizen members appointed annually by the mayor and approved by the council. So that's really the changes in the standing committees. And as you can see throughout here, we've capitalized titles and generally cleaned up some old language, non-substantive. We've capitalized titles, created a gender neutral type of a situation, aldermen, alderpersons versus aldermen, et cetera. But the only other change that I would denote, and then we can kind of come back and go through all of this after we get through the quick presentation here. The only other change in this section is really to the committee of the whole. Communities use committees of the whole very differently, not necessarily differently than ours, but different from community to community. And we have a committee of the whole structure that other communities use, but we really haven't utilized it that way, where we would typically meet the Monday night preceding the council meeting, take care of all of the discussion items, and then on the reconvene at the council meeting the following night and vote on those same matters. And I'm not a big proponent of that, so we just clarified that the committee of the whole shall meet as needed, as opposed to shall meet the Monday preceding the council meetings, just to reflect our current practice. So if we move on into the other portions of our code, you can see that a different section of our code, we have boards, commissions, and committees generally. And in that section, again, with some tidying up while we're preparing amendments, in this section, what we've done is eliminate the Water and Sewer Utility Commission. We've eliminated the Traffic and Safety Commission because, as the council is aware, we are proposing to place those duties and responsibilities in the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets. We've eliminated the Landscape and Beautification Commission. We've eliminated, we've touched up the Plan Commission. This was a little bit unique. This wasn't put in the summary that you discussed on August 18th, but that's just really reflecting what we do, in that the building commissioner is our city engineer. And then, more curiously, again, this wasn't in the summary of August 18th, but my 5th bullet point here is with the Celebrations Commission, we've eliminated the requirement that all, I believe, 10 members of that commission be residents of the city of Oak Creek. So that's up for discussion too, but I've had a conversation with the mayor and the chair of the commission right now, and as we know, it's really tough to get volunteers, and that's, I think, by far our largest commission in terms of number of heads. So that's been a challenge. So there's a lot to discuss there, and we can go through all of the ordinance changes or take this discussion wherever the council would like it to go. But why we brought this red line version forward is a couple fold. Number one, we wanted to have another touch point with the council and the public regarding these changes, because obviously there's some interest in what we're doing here, and that's fantastic. And you don't always see a red line version of the ordinances where we repeal and recreate. So you kind of have to piece together what we were doing, what we were thinking, and what we were changing from to. So we thought, let's put it out there in a red line version. This can come back when if it gets as far as a public hearing. All of this record will be intact, so the residents and the council can easily see what the changes being proposed are when and if we go to that public hearing. And it was just important to have another touch base with the council, because this is, these boards, committees, and commissions, whether they be general or whether they be the standing committees of the council, are really the decision-making life support in the community. So this is the council's to determine how they want to structure it. I think that we've looked at this per our strategic action plan and tried to streamline the decision-making in the community. We've tried to maintain citizen members, as you can see in the Personnel and Finance Committee, and then on the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, and really kind of shift a little bit the workload into more committees that meet less frequently into less committees that meet, regularly. Finance is a great example. We haven't met, I don't think we've met, the Finance Committee has met in my 4-year tenure here. So that's really what we're trying to do, be efficient with our decision-making model here with the council committees as well as the citizen committees, boards, and commissions. And with that, as is put in the staff report, what we would really like to have we can have a conversation on anything of the council's choosing, of course, but really looking at specifically the council standing committees and determining if the number of aldermen, number of citizen reps, as well as the term of the citizen reps is what the council had in mind when we were kind of conceptualizing this at previous meetings and in previous discussions. So once again, the new Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, as well as the new combined Personnel and Finance Committee, have 3 aldermanic appointments and 2 citizen appointments, the citizen appointments being appointed annually. So there's a lot there that I just threw at you, and there's a lot of changes in the red line version. But at this point, I think I'll pause for any questions or any council discussion that any of the members of the council would like to have on any of the proposed draft. The end result is, if the council chooses to move forward, we would be asking you for a motion to, well, as stated in the agenda, but more or less to prepare this ordinance for a public hearing and a potential action at an October meeting.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Looks like Steve has a question or comment.
Andrew, this is Alderman Kirkowski. I think we all agree that this is a major event, major action that we're taking here with this reorganization, and just trying to look forward into what a public hearing might entail with how we're doing business right now. So I think communication to the public, those especially interested in this red line version, I'm certainly not advocating that it gets put on the Facebook page, because I think that it will just, too many comments will not do this any justice whatsoever. But if people want a copy of it, maybe they should get it well in advance. But I just want to suggest that we think outside the box with regards to this particular public hearing, and the fact that sometimes we've had complaints about how, our video Zoom conference council meetings can be. And maybe it just might be take the opportunity where we open up the room across the hall so that people can come and get a really good audio and visual of the public hearing, and then have an opportunity to walk into this room and give their public comments, because I think it's a really, really important matter, and I don't want people to be...
Again, Steve, though, we do have that opportunity for them to come in. We have to keep social distancing
Right.
and masks. They can definitely come in. And again, we've had great success, whether it's planning or common council with the video conference.
I know. I just want to point out that I think this is going to be a...
I agree with you.
potentially-
Facebook is no place to do city business.
No, but
So
I think potentially this is
let's
gonna
get away
be a-
from that talk, please.
Yep, potentially this could be kind of a more an action by us that might draw more attention to just one or two people. So I just wanted to throw that out there just in case we,
I think that's true with any public hearing.
But
So
other than that, it's a good thing to move forward with this tonight. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, we've already prepared. We've had. Let me back up. I think it's been a little bit confusing. I'll be completely honest. We've had applicants for plan commission or planning items that have come in and been present in the audience. We are not going to limit the public participation to be via Zoom. I've had a conversation with Kevin Koenig, our IT manager, on that, and we plan on having for those that are more comfortable coming and being in person and not attending via Zoom, we have that option available to them if this is scheduled. We have that option for them. So I really do, applaud that sentiment, Alderman Kirkowski, and we can make some provisions to make that clear that, we're not locking you out. We've just suggested the video conferencing for these meetings given in the light of COVID. So we will definitely be prepared to open up the room and do so safely. That's what we want, what you guys want.
Thanks, Andrew.
right, Greg, you got something?
Hi, Andrew. It's Alderman Lorick. Just to speak to the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets and the makeup and the numbers. I don't know the history or the background, but I do notice the Police and Fire Commission and the Plan Commission have one has 2 alderpersons and 5 citizens, and then one has 5 citizens. The Police and Fire Commission has 5 citizens. I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to seek 3 alderpersons and maybe 4 citizens on the Board of Public Works. I just think that would give more opportunity for some experts in the fields or all aspects of public works to apply and be placed on that board versus only 2 citizens. Again, I don't know the full benefit to that or if there's any negative impact, but just looking at the other 2 commissions, I mean, I would put the safety of drinking water and other public works at a high importance level along with the Planning Commission and Police and Fire. So I would think that the makeup could be similar to those 2 commissions as well. Even the Library Board has 7 members with 5 citizens and 1 alderperson. So that would be my thought, to seek to add a couple citizens.
And Alderman Lord, thank you for bringing that up. And that's why I thought we should have a directed discussion on that, because you brought that up, I believe, at the August 18th meeting. One distinction to make between those commissions and committees and boards that you just had mentioned versus the standing committees of the council that we're talking about here. The standing committees of the council are completely discretionary. The council can create or not have those, or create whatever structure or composition of that as the council so chooses. The other ones are completely statutory, and Melissa, Attorney Carls, can correct me if I'm wrong, but those numbers of citizens, numbers of people who hold other office, et cetera, are called out in the statute. So that's point number 1, and I think that's a great topic of discussion for your group this evening, the makeup and how many citizen members. Number 2, though, I think that there is something to be said one way or another. I'll just throw it up for debate. about having on your council standing committees a majority of those that are council members versus a majority of citizen representatives. So I know obviously we're going away from that with specifically the Water and Sewer Utility Commission, where we have 1 alderperson and 4 citizen members. But one potential alternative, if that's not where the council wants to go, if we don't want to do 3 and 4, we could draw back to this idea of an alternate member that only votes when one of the other citizen members are not there. So we could effectively have a group of 6, one being an alternate that only votes when one of the other citizen members are absent, and we wouldn't run into that situation that I illuminated earlier with the finance committee, as it were, where you could have only 4 people voting at any time, and that's the whole complement of the voting members. We could avoid that. We could add a little bench strength via the citizen addition, the citizen alternate. That citizen alternate could participate in those meetings, every meeting, and just only have a vote on matters when one of those other 2 standing citizen members are not there. So I'll throw that out there as an alternative, Alderman Lorik, if the temperature or the appetite for having 3 and 4 is not there. That's potentially an alternative to discuss as well.
Is that it, Greg?
Yeah, I guess just another comment.
Sure.
Not assuming anything, but I'll use myself as an example. If I was one of the 3 alder people being placed on that board, I have little to no experience in the field of water safety and things of that nature. So I would rely heavily on the experts or people with a lot of experience. So I don't know the current makeup as far as their background on the current board. But I personally would rely heavily on citizen members with an extensive background and hope that would be the reason they were put on the board. But I would look to them. So I would think that the more experience that you can put on a board such as that would be better.
Mayor, Danny?
Yeah, hang on, Ken.
Sorry.
Chris, you ready?
Yes. I was just going to point out a few things. Alderman Guzikowski, 6th District. In your proposed new plan, Andrew, I thought you mentioned that the citizen reps would be appointed annually. I don't know if I misunderstood you or not, but it seems like right now there is like people are appointed to certain things for 2 or 3, or I don't know what the.
Yeah, we'd have to decide on those terms.
Okay.
I think when Andrew meant annually, I think he meant for a term. I don't think it's year to year.
Okay.
The only commission I think we do that with is tourism currently.
Keep in mind, gentlemen, again, this is an annual appointment. So everybody, including the aldermen, are up annually, and the citizen members. So it's effectively a 1-year appointment. And we could do 2 years, we could do 3. I really think getting past 3 years is a little too long. But that's up to you all. We could certainly do more than 1 year for the citizen members. I think the aldermanic appointments are 1 year purposefully because 3 aldermen are up for election every year, if I remember correctly. So that makes sense. So we can talk about a multi-year appointment to any of those council standing committees. And again, where you get into those other boards, commissions, and committees like police and fire, I think those are 5-year appointments, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Attorney Carls can help me out there, but that is by statute. So you don't have the discretion to do anything else. And here you have your governing body has the absolute discretion to pick. I suppose you could pick 10 years if you wanted, but for discussion purposes, we threw out appointing them annually, as it were in the finance committee, as it was written for the past several years.
I think for some, from a continuity standpoint, if maybe more than 1 year, that would be my one reason why I'd point for something a little longer than maybe a year, just food for thought. The other thing that I had was on boards, traffic. If you decided to change the makeup from three three aldermen and 2 citizen reps, I think I would be okay with a third citizen rep as a non-voting, and that would be something that they could vote on if they need be. I think that'd be a good possibility. And then lastly, the other thing that Alderman Lork was discussing was knowledge about the said, subjects. I think it's like a lot, we do at every council meeting. We always rely on, a lot of our reports and getting the right information when we are coming to these meetings. So I think that all falls on, the current staff that's at the water utility and how they comprise and what they make up and get to you in the minutes. That would be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Just to echo what Guzzi was saying, and to kind of address what Greg had brought up, on the Water Utility Commission, currently there is no absolute anybody who's ever worked in the water utility business on the commission. I mean, some of those members have been there a long time, but there is no necessarily expertise. We meet once a month, so like Chris said, on planning, you're relying on, just like at the Common Council, you rely on the expertise of staff to bring you, plausible and actionable items. Commission is not generating, action and ordinance worthy kind of discussion. It's all based upon the staff recommendations, and the skill set of the board is really to be mature enough and professional enough, and be able to analyze the situation to be able to tell whether or not something makes sense. I mean, so in terms of expertise, planning commission, you got some engineers, and you got a staff member on planning, but so it's no one's really. You're not going to find someone who runs needed someone who runs a street construction company to be on the Board of Public Works. It's all, you need someone who can analyze things and ascertain things that make sense, and you are trusting in what the management of these departments brings forward for recommendations. So other than that, I would kind of echo Guzzi's thoughts on 2 in the term. Andrew, I think maybe a 2-year term with the first 2 citizen reps. The first year, one expires 1 year, and then one expires in year 2. So sure. You don't lose everybody potentially every year. So I think the 2 citizen reps maybe stagger them, so they expire 2 years, but 1 each year. So that'd be the only thing I think on that.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The first concern I have here, Andrew, would be the structure of personnel and finance. The proposal here, alderperson.
I lost it.
Mike, it looks like your mic is muted.
Oh, sorry.
That's much better.
Okay. All right. You got it?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. The first question would be on personnel and finance, the combination of the 2 committees. You've got 3 alderman reps and 2 citizen reps. You alluded to the fact that there could be a 2-2 vote, so you got it balanced at a 5-person combination. What happens in the case of, or is there any, I should word it differently, is there any guarantee that when recommendations and votes are made by that committee that we would have a 5-person vote in the case of maybe not a, I don't want 3 or 4 people showing up. Long story short, 3 or 4 people showing up in that committee and making decisions that are now basically governed by the alderman. So what would be the answer to that?
Excuse me, I think with whatever number in whatever committee, board, or commission you're talking about, you always run the risk of members not being present at any meeting, but having a quorum and being able to proceed with the business of that body at that time. And again, I'd ask Attorney Carls to chime in here if I'm misspeaking. So I don't know necessarily, Alderman Tillman, how you safeguard against that. We could, again, we can do whatever composition of these standing committees that the council wishes. So that's why we're here tonight, to make sure that when the public hearing goes forward, that you guys have had a chance to talk about the ordinance. I don't know how you guard against.
Andrew, I think there might be some confusion, Mike, that personnel may not, I don't believe that the personnel is intended to get straight votes and authorizations. I think they're still planning to make recommendations to the full common council on certain items. So maybe that's part of the issue.
I agree, Alderman Gale. My concern is we deal with some pretty sensitive issues, especially in labor negotiations. And moving, those can be very complicated versus other boards and commissions that we deal with. And I guess my question should be directed more to Melissa as to the fact, could we guarantee that there be 5 people at that meeting? Or is there any way we can do that? Because that's a huge concern for me.
I understand, Alderman Tillman. I can tell you a couple of my thoughts as you're having this discussion. I mean, I think the bottom line is it's up to the council, however you want to structure it, what the composition is in terms of the representation. Going back to earlier discussion tonight from Alderman Guzikowski and Alderman Lorik, the standing committees are differentiated from the other boards and commissions, which are statutorily designated. But I think you raise a really important point, which is probably true for any community and their boards and commissions and standing committees or ad hoc committees. You have them because you want people to appear and give that valuable input, right? So my initial thought was to say, configure it in the fashion that you think is best. The other piece, the counterpoint, is you can't have a meeting without a quorum, of course. And if you wanted to increase the representation, either by way of an additional aldermanic rep and a citizen rep, I'm not suggesting that that might be the best case scenario. It could become unwieldy to try to get all of that representation. But the other check and balance could be in consideration of an annual appointment. Each board, commission, committee is different. And I think that there's something to be said for a shorter term. And if it becomes difficult, as we've seen for any sort of committee, certainly a council member may have different employment, or a plan commissioner, for example, that takes them traveling. And, if it is an annual appointment and they're not able to make however many meetings that might be, that's some consideration as to the term. If you wanted to structure, however, I would say a requirement for a minimum attendance, I think it would be just that, the quorum. And what I'm hearing is that you're indicating I wouldn't be satisfied with 3 or 4. So
can you structure it to include on a recommendation moving forward that 3 aldermen would have to be present? I don't have a problem with the 2 citizens. Don't get me wrong. I think that's important. But I also think because of the sensitive issues, and I think the mayor was served on that committee for many years, there's some pretty touchy subjects there. And there's, unless you have 3 aldermen there, I guess I can't agree to the structure moving forward. There again, not eliminating the 2 citizen reps. That's not my intention.
And Mike, the other thing is that for labor bargaining, it does say here that only the 3 alderman reps would serve on a labor bargaining term and not the citizen reps.
Is that a guarantee?
Well, it's part of the recommendation on here, so if that helps sway your decision one way or another.
Okay.
So
Personnel
maybe
does get into some personal issues at times.
Very personal.
Yeah. And it regards everything from, you dabble into HIPAA laws and all sorts of things. So
You've got employment issues too.
Yeah. Separation issues, and hiring issues, and
But,
things of
I
that
mean,
nature.
I mean, everyone that serves on these boards knows, kind of what comes with the territory. And as Mike, as Guzzi said, the recommendation on the bargaining committee is the only 3 aldermen serve on that. So.
Okay.
So
That's,
let me
is that your understanding, Melissa, too? Okay. All right.
let me jump in if I could. Can you guys still hear me on the audio there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So Melissa's point was very well put. And that's a very good rationalization for shorter terms of citizen appointees, right? Hey, you guys did, you went off on the lamb here, and you did things that otherwise we wouldn't have agreed with if we were a full body. So that's a good point. But what I also should have shared earlier on is, as you can see, at the end of each of these sections on personnel and finance, as well as the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, it says, and shall perform such other duties and have certain authorities as assigned by the Common Council. So that is where in the ordinance, let me back up. In the ordinance itself, it doesn't say that the 3 members, aldermanic representatives, serve as the bargaining committee. That was in my recommendation. What we intend to do as we implement this is bring back a resolution that the council can consider for each of those new committees or commissions or boards, and say this authority shall be vested in the committee, or these certain items need to be recommendations to the full council. So for instance, tentatively agreeing to, well, in that instance, we would carve out that the 3 personnel, the 3 aldermen on the personnel and finance committee shall serve as the bargaining team. We would carve that out so that there's no I guess there's no secret there of what the expectation is. I've always been a little confused about what certain things stop at the personnel committee as it's currently structured and what goes to the full council as a recommendation. For instance, tuition reimbursement. Now, I could probably see 7 nodding heads up there that say that they don't want to see every tuition reimbursement request come to a full common council meeting. So as an example, that would be one thing we would reserve for the personnel and finance committee to completely decide on itself. Maybe unpaid leaves of absence and things along those lines. That could be another thing that's just vested in the personnel and finance committee itself. So we can kind of carve out what authorities and responsibilities these committees or boards have, and that which we expect to be just recommendations to the council. This will get much more important as we talk about the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, because of course, the Water and Sewer Utility Commission had the pretty independent authority to manage and control the utilities of the city for many years. So we want to carve out and give the general manager and give that new Board of Public Works a lot of autonomy to work with that new Board of Public Works and Capital Assets, such that we're not bringing vouchers of the utility functions of the city to the Common Council for approval, right? It might be, hey, you can have the ability to approve contracts up to a certain amount maybe, or something along those lines. So there will be a discussion moving forward on what we want to vest in these committees and boards as their authority, and what we want to have them be as just recommending agents to the council, if that helps at all.
That does help because the language is yet to be determined, correct? Okay. I think I've let you know what my concerns are. And
I think,
Go ahead.
well,
Sorry.
no, I would reiterate, I mean, to Alderman Toman's point, and I think Alderman Guzikowski pointing out what the proposal is, I mean, it's a lot before you to pick and choose. I would just reiterate from a limited perspective, that being mine, this isn't all going to be summed up in one fell swoop. I mean, there's going to be quite a number of pieces, and I think where you're going to be getting input, certainly from the city administrator and from other staff, as to what works and what recommendations are. That's what you've tasked everyone to do and to bring back. And to Andrew's point, I mean, those clarifications, I would just submit, Alderman Toman, it's very intentional to put in this red line to say for the very purpose that the council would be able to have the directive to assign those other duties and responsibilities. So if there's a specific charge that arises for a standing committee, if there's some issue regarding, we've had ad hoc committees for the lakefront, for example. I mean, there might be other directives that are going to be limited in nature or very specific and ongoing. So I think that's just the language that speaks to that piece, understanding that there are some components that each of you will feel very strongly about and we will need to bring back and formalize.
I think conversely, though, Alderman Toman, we can have a discussion on leaving the personnel and finance at the 3 aldermen. That would be completely fine too. So
yeah, there again, it's not my intention to cut off any citizen membership. It's just that I got to go back to some of the sensitivity that, and if you add 2 citizen board members to that, or committee members, it could get convoluted, and you know how involved those discussions are with bargaining, and that could turn into a mess. That's what I foresee. But I do support. If we do go to this citizen appointment thing, the 2-year term, to extend it more than one, I don't have a problem with that. The 2-year, with the exception of police and fire, obviously. They have 5 now?
5.
Is it? Yeah. And I guess my second comment would be when it comes to whatever this turns into with the utility discussion, PSC, or however this turns out, that I am a strong supporter of more aldermanic and elected officials, which we are. I'm supportive of having a larger representation, more than the one that we have now that Alderman Gale is on. I think it's very important to have more scrutiny by the elected officials, because I believe in our form of government. We are elected, we answer to the citizens, and I think this giving more representation of elected officials actually is a benefit to our citizens. That comes in context with the input from the utility staff, which Alderman Gale referred to. They're the experts. We follow their lead and we make decisions based on that. So that's I guess all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Rich?
Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District, 1 comment, 1 question. The comment is in regard to the structure of the Public Board of Works and Capital Assets. We've had significant discussions in regard to that, and with that ultimate goal of better alignment with the utility, or of the utility with the city. Information has been provided, a significant amount, by city administrator and by staff to support, I guess, the argument for further or better alignment. However, I mean, I've had I've had feedback from constituents in the 3rd District. So as Alderman Gurkowski had mentioned, I just want to make certain that those individuals that have concerns about such a big step, have the opportunity to participate in that, the public meeting, the public hearing. So I'm glad to see that, Mayor Dan was and Andrew, we're certainly in favor of that. I think that'll go a long way in helping everyone understand what we as elected officials and what our city staff is trying to accomplish with this alignment. But I think each of us, I mean, we are the voice of the citizens in our district. At least that's the platform that I ran on. I say, you know what? Not everybody can get into City Hall and kind of question or challenge or even meet with city officials. And this is that role or purpose. So although I may not necessarily agree with everything about or the arguments that have been provided to me by those against city alignment with the utility, I'm certainly open to listening to them and hearing what their arguments or concerns are. So again, I'm glad that we're taking that route. Number two, I must have missed this somewhere. I'm a member of Traffic and Safety, and that's redlined out. Was that combined in anything else, Andrew? I can't find it anywhere.
Traffic and Safety will go with Boards of Public Works.
Oh, okay, and I didn't.
Am I correct, Andrew?
I didn't see that.
That's correct. Yep.
It is, okay. My apologies.
There if you want. So if you're going to
I
miss
missed that somewhere. Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Kevin, did anybody ring in? Nothing. No, again, this is really just, tonight's motion is to bring it to a public hearing with a cleaned up document and work out the details. I've had a bunch of phone calls on it too, and to tell you the truth, most of them are concerned citizens that are very misinformed as to what we're trying to accomplish here and what we're doing. They're kind of funny, not funny discussions, but once you get into it and you start to really, clear it out, and it, in some cases they're concerned about water, but we're talking about other boards and commissions as well. So again, it's really making for smaller, more efficient government is the goal with better alignment. So that is it.
Mayor
yes,
Dan,
go ahead,
Andrew. Could I just recap what the council would
Yes.
like to see in the final ordinance that will go to public hearing if you so choose, because that is the motion before you. I understood that we wanted to stagger the appointment of the 2 citizen reps,
I'd agree.
and do we want to leave the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets at 3 and 2, or did we want to do the 3 and 2 with an alternate?
I'd opt for leaving it at 3 and 2, but I'm not overly hyped against.
Andrew,
staff has no opinion on that whatsoever. We can.
No, I would. I don't know if I so much want to do a straw poll here publicly on that. I would advise, think about this, gentlemen, and have your conversation with staff appropriately on your feelings.
Okay. And then I think only lastly, which is great, just a question for Alderman Tolman: would we want to just be explicit in our intent on having just the alderperson representatives be on the bargaining committee? We could also just write in the ordinance, and that doesn't preclude the discussion we were talking about earlier, where we'll come back with a resolution or something that further defines the duties that are assigned to as an exclusive right to these commissions and boards, and those that are reserved for the council. We could easily do that too, just to cement that. That'd be fine.
Andrew, having in the past served on both those commissions, the Finance Commission really was an overhaul of our processes and procedures of handling money from the treasurer to the clerk to you name it. A lot of heavy lifting went in there, and our citizen rep did an excellent job, by the way. He was dynamite. That committee, there's a reason it really hasn't met for quite a while. Not to say it's not necessary, but maybe you could almost leave personnel as is because of the sensitivity of the information. And then, when you're having those finance commission meetings, bring them in and then dismiss, do the finance first. If there's a need for it, dismiss them and then move on to personnel.
Is there,
I would agree with you, Dan. I would maybe leave the personnel as three alderman reps.
And I'll chime in as well, being on the Personnel Committee, Alderman Dukenyak, 3rd District. And Mike, you're absolutely correct. The sensitive nature, I mean, I'm the newest member of that committee. And really, it's difficult for probably the general public to understand some of the sensitive natures of the discussions that go on in those meetings. And secondly, as elected officials, I mean, we're held accountable by the citizens of the community that have voted us in. So I mean, we have to, in essence, we report to somebody. I'm not quite sure who those citizen appointees, who are they, who do they report to? Council ultimately?
The mayor who may or may not appoint them.
Oh, okay, thank you, Ed. Okay, for clearing that.
One thing I was going to point out on the three aldermanic reps is when you guys are meeting on personnel, you're always scrambling to make a date work for three of you. If you start throwing a fourth person in there or a fifth person, that may make it more difficult for them. That's my only 2 cents.
And Chris, that discussion did come up, given the makeup of the current committee, but that may change, and I think you're going to run into that. Somebody 5 years down the road that is an elected official will have a schedule that is different from someone currently. So that'll always be something we'll have to deal with. But that was a point that was brought up, yes.
okay, I think a good point to be made here would be when the Personnel Committee meets, almost exclusively our very sensitive issues are done in closed session, okay? So my question to you, Melissa, would be, being that they start as an open meeting before we go into closed session, I mean, citizens are allowed to attend that meeting as it is structured now, okay? So moving forward, could we specify that closed session is exclusive to the three aldermen? Is that a possibility? Because I could live with that.
Or exclusive to bargaining?
Well, no.
There's
the
personnel issues.
No, because you've got some.
I personally, I'd make it easy. I'd keep it at the three aldermen.
Yeah,
quite
I'm in
frankly.
favor of that.
And then I would make finance, if it's a standalone, the same three aldermen with the 2 citizen reps, and always have the finance meeting the first 15 minutes, adjourn it, and then move on to the personnel.
I can live with that. I can live with that, Mayor.
Yep.
To keep it as it's
And
currently structured.
I think that makes perfect sense, again, given the sensitive natures of a lot of the business that's discussed.
But
I think that would be really difficult to notice. I don't think that's one body. Melissa can chime in here, but I think if there's any compromise to be had, well, there always is. I think you're really, and I know Mike, Alderman Tolman did not want to, rally around having no citizen representation, but I think really to make it easy, what we're talking about here is having a combined personnel and finance that the only composition is 3 members of the council. I really think that's what we need to do to affect the things that you're talking about. I don't think we can just notice a meeting and then dismiss 2 of the members if I think that would be uncommon. I wouldn't want to say it's not doable.
I concur with Andrew. I think that, the whole point of this move is to make it more efficient and streamline things and kind of muddy up having a standing finance committee, which hasn't met in 4 years. It's kind of defeats the purpose. So I think if there is finance related issues that come up, I think leave it with the 3 aldermanic members of personnel and leave it at that.
Question for Mike and Ken. You're the longest standing members of that committee. Has there ever been citizen representation on that committee?
No.
No, okay.
Well,
Not on personnel and finance.
Right, and I'm sorry for.
They are open meetings, so even though there's not representation, you could have the public there.
The public has come in.
So to answer my question, can we make the closed sessions exclusive to the aldermen? or not?
My opinion, and not trying to avoid answering your question, Alderman Toman, I would be much more comfortable with the status quo of personnel being comprised of the 3 aldermanic representatives. And I would say, one, we need consensus for some direction tonight, if you're there, council, as to all of these pieces, but specifically for what we're talking about now as well. The other piece is you could give some consideration to maintaining the finance committee for those purposes that might arise. I mean, my concern is appointing an individual, a citizen, an aldermanic rep, and then somehow limiting their participation or responsibilities, treating them differently for certainly different purposes here. But I think what you're really driving at from the comments here is personnel for the nature of the matters that come before it and for the composition being the 3 aldermanic representatives. It seems to have been working, is what I'm hearing candidly. And it seems as though there's quite a number of more concerns to try to add the citizen members to be appointed annually or whatnot. So I guess the question is to leave personnel as is, and I would not be as comfortable. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I would want to look into that, Alderman Toman, but I think that it's concerning in terms of carving out those pieces. So I would say I'd be much more comfortable with leaving personnel as aldermanic representatives if that's what you wanted versus excluding citizen members from other conversations. I think that it just goes to the intent of what the committee's purpose is.
That's what the mayor had in mind also.
I'm sorry to jump in. I'm sorry to jump in and probably interrupt you guys, but it's tough to do this on Zoom. So I really do apologize for that. There's no, I suppose I could raise my hand, Dan.
Just go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry if I'm cutting anybody off and all that. So, I'm not that eager to talk about personnel and finance, but I think that we have to, let's take inventory of where we're coming from and what we're going to, potentially. What we have is a finance committee that's separate than the personnel committee that hasn't met in 4 years, and there is no major drive among your council or your staff to reconvene that committee to give them work. So we're not eliminating 2 citizen members out of a committee. They haven't been active. I think both of the active members that were active on personnel and finance had resigned and one had moved out of town. So I don't think we're going from 2 citizen members and cutting them out of this equation moving forward. I think really what the discussion should focus on is, do we want to have the matters, the financial matters, which are very much in the community and others like it, interwoven with the personnel? And if it's easiest to do that and call it a personnel and finance committee of 3 aldermanic representatives, let's go that route, because we're not really cutting out 2 citizens in the community out of our boards and commissions because they're not active and there's no plan for them to be active. So think about that as I know Mike Alderman Toman was sensitive, like, I don't want to be up here saying that I want to have less citizen reps on the boards and committees. And I'm just suggesting, Alderman Toman, that we're not doing that because we have 2 on the committee that hasn't met in 4 years. So they're really not active.
And Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. And Mike, you made the point that they're open meetings, so the public certainly can participate in most of the discussions of personnel and then eventually finance. I know the residents of the 3rd District are not shy about letting their voice be heard or opinions be known. So I don't think this, by limiting it just to the 3 alderpersons on that committee, kind of restricts public input at all. As I mentioned, we're supposed to be the mouthpiece for the residents of our districts, and I think that will certainly still be the case by just having the 3 alderpersons as the committee members, for personnel.
Melissa?
If I might, Andrew, what I'm looking at is the current language in the code as to the Finance Committee, kind of piggybacking on what Alderman Dukniak is saying. And I think your comments, I guess I would suggest that it's important for everything that the council is deciding on in terms of this red line version tonight for consideration. If you look at the language of the current ordinance regarding the Finance Committee, it is to perform such duties as assigned by the council, which is the consistency that's brought into these other committees tonight in the red line, but also specifically speaking to recommendations on policy revisions, tax incremental financing, capital funding of vehicles, equipment and buildings, investments, revenue analysis, cash flow analysis, and other financial related issues. All of this is a policy consideration for you to determine, but I guess I would say just that's something critical to consider. If it's going to be folded in, do you feel like that's being addressed and covered in other ways, perhaps through all the economic development discussions, perhaps through, I know in the last 2 years, as far as capital funding for vehicles, not just CIP, but those pieces, we brought matters of different ways of handling DPW vehicles, the city administrator, in terms of proposals that you've seen. Our investments, I think the TIF presentations, I'm not taking a position or trying to oversell it. I just want you to be mindful that that language is in there. And to that end, if the purview or the charge of what the Finance Committee used to be versus what you might envision it to be now, I just point that out in terms of the language that's potentially going to stay in or come out. So hopefully that's assistive, Andrew, just given where you're trying to go with that piece.
I appreciate that. I think what I would just say is there's probably some financial considerations that are not as long as that list that were under the charge of the original Finance Committee. You know, things like health insurance recommendations and things that are kind of interwoven with personnel. I mean, and we're not going to bring development agreements to the Finance Committee in advance of the council. We have a pretty good cadence right now with the council of how we go about those major developments in the city. So I guess I will just say that I am comfortable lumping in personnel with finance, but and having that as a matter of convenience, the personnel committee as it's meeting would handle some financial matters. I wouldn't be comfortable creating or leaving separate the Finance Committee to handle, you know, just another committee that hasn't met, because obviously we've been doing pretty well without one, because a lot of the heavy lifting, the policy guidance and things were put in place, you know, 4 and 5 years ago. So just note that I would be comfortable if we wanted to have a personnel and finance committee that were just 3 aldermanic reps.
Yeah, I mean, I would go that way too. I mean, remember, Andrew, the Finance Committee was, you know, was reorganized for about 2 years. I mean, it had been idle for years before that. And then now, again, has been idle for 4 more years. So if there's concern about the sensitivity of stuff, I'd really be very comfortable with the personnel committee, you know, assuming though that the 3 aldermen handle all those deliberations and considerations as a Finance Committee in combination with personnel.
Great. Okay. So what we need is a motion moving us forward to a public hearing on these.
Sorry, Mayor, I had one last.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
One last question of your council, and that is the makeup of the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets. Is that going to be? I know we're going to stagger the terms for both of the new committees, the Joint Personnel and Finance, as well as the Board of Public Works. That's fine. But where did we end with 3 and 2, 3, 2, and 1 alternate, 3 and 4, in terms of alderperson representation to citizen members on the Board of Public Works and Capital Assets?
I think 3 and 2 with the stagger.
Alderman Gale, the stagger is just the
term,
the initial term.
And the citizen.
Yeah, the initial, one of them gets the initial term of 1 year.
Yep, and then the other one gets 2. Yeah. What did we want to have an alternate a la what the Finance Committee was doing for years, where we can have another body, maybe with some expertise or maybe not, deliberate, but only and attend the meetings, but only vote when one of the two citizen members is not present.
I don't have a real strong feeling on that. I think it might be hard to fill that role, but I guess I'll listen to the other guys.
You can go that route. I see a couple of heads nodding here, so.
I think that'd be a good maybe compromise to which, I like Alderman Lorick's point. We don't require expertise. There's no job description, but certainly, I'm gonna step on the mayor's toes right now, but I would imagine that more than one or more of the members of the current Water and Sewer Utility Commission will be queried to see if they have any interest in serving on the new Board of Public Works. Mayor Dan and I have had some conversations about that, that's why I'm not stepping on his toes, but I think that cohesiveness could be very helpful to lift this off the ground as well. So do we want to do 3, 2, and 1 alternate?
I'd be in favor of that. Yep.
Alderman Lorick?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. I think that's most of them there, Andrew. So proceed that way, please.
Okay.
Okay. Let's consider a motion on 6 then to get us to public hearing.
Gail will move then to direct staff to draft an ordinance repealing and recreating Chapter 2 of the municipal code regarding committees, boards, and commissions, and to bring the matter back for consideration in a public hearing.
Oracle second.
Got that, Krista?
I do.
Okay, roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Okay. Item 7 gets us to engineering and its consideration of a resolution authorizing a CIP recommended road improvement projects to be advertised for bid for the rehabilitation in 2021.
Danny, I got to take off, so I'm going to leave you guys now.
Oh, okay, Ken.
All right, you guys take care.
Do we have, there's Mike. Mike Simmons is with us tonight. Mike, how are you?
Yes. So, hello, Mayor. Yes, very good. Thank you. Andrew, can you, I think I need to ask you to stop sharing your screen before I can share mine. Looks like you have.
Kevin probably booted me. Master Controls probably booted me.
You thought I was trying to get on. So, okay. So, we, engineering, met with the CIP committee last month, and we talked about the road project that is planned for next year. We have a budget of a little over $1.3 million for earmarked for road improvements. That is a contribution that was made in the 2020 budget. And so maybe we're jumping the gun a little here, but we are requesting the remainder of that 1.3 million in the 2021 budget. And so basically what we did was we presented the committee with a group of roads, 4 groups of roads that totaled up somewhere near that budget of $1.3 million. And asked if they wanted to consider one grouping versus another, or some basically a la carte menu, choosing roads off of any of those 4 groups. And in the end, that's what was done, and that's what the roads that have made this recommendation to on this list, this recommended list to the council here tonight. And basically the roads, there are different treatments that are proposed for these roads. Asphalt roads, for the most part, would be mill and overlays. Concrete roads, for the most part, are some repair, patching, crack and seeding, and then asphalt overlays of those roads. And then also some further are more seal type treatments that we are starting to utilize more. We did one long road, Pennsylvania, in the last cycle, and we thought that it was successful. So we are proposing more of those. As you can see on your list, they are items 11, 12, and 13. And you know, we have representation of across the city. I will say that District 2 has just 2 roads that are listed as alternates. That would be Wood Avenue and Carrington Avenue up in the 2nd District. So also what we were trying to achieve as we were selecting these roads, you may see that there's some groupings. For instance, 11 and 12 are roads that are adjacent to each other. And 5 and 6, McGraw and Oak Lane are adjacent. 7, 8, 9, 10 are all in a neighborhood. Those are roads that are all in need of the same type of treatment. And of course, there's efficiencies in mobilizing and taking care of an area all at one time. And so that factored in to the road selection as well. I mentioned that there was not a road in District 2 other than the alternates that I had mentioned, but I would hope that there'd be consideration. In the last cycle, we did do a major road in that section, which was Wildwood, and which ended up being really a full reconstruction.
Came out nice though, Mike.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mayor. I know you had to drive through. You had to avoid barrels, you and your neighbors, for a couple of months.
No, but it was one of those things. You got down that deep, and it wouldn't have paid off for the taxpayers to do it halfway. So you made the right decision.
Yeah, and we had taken care of the bridge the previous year, so hopefully we leave you alone for a decade or more now.
Mike, were all these streets, you guys have the grading plan, the A, B, C, D, and you really focus on the B's and C's to get the longevity. Were all these roads in those categories?
Yeah, I mean, these roads were, they were. And for the most part, these are roads that are rated, anywhere from 3s to 3s, 4s, 5s on the Pacer system. Of course, 1 is the worst, 10 is brand new. And again, when we talked about some of these roads, like these seal treatments, these are roads that are good candidates. These are the roads that we talked about that have they're rated okay. We want to give them a seal treatment, and then we can maybe bump them up a rating, or maybe even 2, but then we hold them there. We kind of suspend their deterioration, and we really don't need to worry about them for probably 8 to 10 more years before we're back looking at them, considering them again. So that would be the County Line Road, the 10th Avenue. The other thing that factors in there is these are roads that don't have a ton of traffic on them, traffic volumes, and these are really some of our arterial roads that move traffic, not from driveway to driveway, driveway to around the corner, but kind of cars moving through. So those are some of the criteria that we apply.
Questions, Rich?
Sure. Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. Mike, I'm glad to see on the front of the council report that there was discussion about rehabilitation of Putes Road from 27th to 13th Street.
Yes.
So again, can you provide a little bit more detail if it's been discussed? What will be the rehabilitation process? And is there a budget, or is there a number to go along with that rehabilitation process?
Yes, there is. So that was on the list, and it was talked about in the CIP committee meeting. Prior to that meeting, of course, we were already kind of into the, the budget discussions and the CIP requests for the 2021 budget. And Andrew got talking with us in engineering, and we thought definitely Pute's. I mean, that was really number one. It needed to go, and we were really going to advocate for that road, and we have high hopes that it will be constructed next year, only with a different funding source, and that funding source would be TIF 7. That looks to have capacity to be able to fund that road. And so you'll see as we have the CIP meeting later this week on the budget, that is a request there. So the thought is that the budget for that would need to be about $400,000. And on top of that, we're looking for, I think it was $50,000 or $60,000 that would be funded from yet another source, potentially the stormwater fund, for some drainage improvements along the edges, and that would be improving the ditches and maybe doing some piping and kind of a minor storm sewer installation, just to really to take care of a number of issues, some kind of unsafe side slopes and things of that nature. Which is what we look at when we do some of these longer roads that have these issues. So again, we like chances that will be approved by the CAP committee later on this week for the 2021 budget. If that were the case, then we would design that right along with these other 13 sections that are on the list and put them all out to bid at one time, just with a different funding source for the Pute's road work.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Any other questions for Mike? Greg.
Mike, Alderman Lorik, I just had a follow-up question for Pute's Road. Would that section ever be targeted to install sidewalks? I noticed there's a lot of pedestrian traffic down that road, and they're all just walking on the shoulder. I know it kind of feeds towards the middle school and even the high school a little bit further down from there, but I mean, that's ideal. I understand that the funding might not be there.
Yeah, I mean, anything can be done if you got enough money to do it, and that would significantly increase the cost of improvements to that road. We're going through the wetlands down by Apple Creek Drive, just a little bit east of Apple Creek Drive, and so in that location we are, just almost hopelessly tied to the width of the road that we have. Now, the good thing is that we got a decent width of road. We've got two 12-foot travel lanes in each direction and a paved shoulder. That paved shoulder, for better or for worse, is can accommodate bicycles and pedestrians. By no means ideal, what we're talking about here would be basically removing the deteriorated pavement and repaving somewhat close to its current configuration.
Okay. And can any type of design elements, I'm not talking curbs, but just extra painted lines or something be placed to better?
We could certainly explore that, and we've done it in other areas of the city. You may recall, maybe those two 12-foot lanes become two 11-foot lanes, and then that gives you one extra foot of paved shoulder out there on each side. And there is the concept of narrower lanes, slows drivers down. We've had mixed results as we've done it on other roads where we take the speeds beforehand and then we take the speeds after. I guess we haven't seen it be as successful as we had hoped it might be. But those are some things, and we'll talk about it more in engineering as we move to design on that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything, Chris? You got something?
Just I would just want to thank from our CAP meeting. I would just want to thank Mike, and I think also it was Ashley that was there that helped do some work on all these roads or most of the roads, and also probably Mike Sullivan as well, right?
Matt, right? Yep.
Or I'm sorry, Matt. I know that the roads, these sidewalks has been an ongoing. I think I talked to engineering probably on at least an annual basis about it, and they certainly know the concerns that I've shared with them as well. So we'll keep on it. And I did hear we applied for a grant for the sidewalks, but we didn't qualify for it. So that's unfortunate, because that's how we were going to try to take care of some sidewalks, but it didn't turn out to be. So
Right, that was that segment that was actually from 13th towards Liberty. So that's another segment that we have targeted for. It needs widening to potentially 3 lanes, which being the two-way left turn lane. Looks like that would be a good candidate for that road. And of course, then we've got the ability to get a sidewalk in at least from 13th up to Liberty in that segment.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, motion on 7.
Guzikowski makes a motion that the Common Council consider adoption of resolution number 12190-091520, resolution authorizing the CIP recommended road improvement projects to be advertised for public bid for rehab in 2021.
Hold seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
And item 8 is also engineering, and its consideration of a motion to authorize the engineering department to enter into a contract with Ayers Associates for design services of West Drexel Avenue from 13th Street to Howell Avenue. Mike?
Okay, let me stop sharing my screen here. So council will recall that we were successful in gaining a STP grant through the Department of Transportation, federal money administered by WSDOT for the improvements that are necessary for Drexel Avenue from 13th to Howell Avenue. And that is, of course, an older concrete pavement that has seen a little bit of accelerated deterioration, poor ride, and that has to do directly with the significant increase in traffic ever since the Drexel interchange opened, and of course the improvements at Drexel Town Square and adjacent properties. So good things followed with some downside, of course, the road. So we've got improvements proposed and got the grant, and that will fund potentially up to 80% of that. And so first things first, we need to follow the guidelines of the stipulations of the grant, and so there is a quality-based selection process that we follow as we solicit firms to take on the bulk of the design needed to get this project out to bid and then constructed. Timing of which would be design in 2021 and then construction following in 2022. So what we're talking about here is that process. We followed all the steps necessary. We did receive proposals from 5 firms with their qualifications. The criteria were their qualifications, their references, their proposed project team, their understanding of the project and their approach, their current workload, i.e. their availability to provide the services that they are proposing in our time frame, and then their schedule of tasks. And so a team of us, which was Ashley, Matt, and myself, we reviewed these proposals, really independently scored them, and we were pleased to see that we all had the same top 3, and then the bottom, the 4th and 5th rankings were transposed in one sense. So bottom line is we all basically agreed as we read through these proposals, who our preferred candidate is, and that is Ayers Associates. And they've been around for a long time. They've done work for the city over really the last couple of decades, and so we feel good about that. We sent that selection to the state. They reviewed it and they basically agreed with it. Basically, the next step then would be for our council to agree with that and authorize us to then take the next step, which is to then negotiate the design contract with heirs.
Okay, questions? Comments? No, just want to point out the cost share on this to the city is only 20%. So we're talking $56,300 and federally funded up to a maximum of $225,200. So great job for your staff. Congratulations. Good work. So no other questions, comments, motion.
Clerk will move that the council authorize the engineering department to enter into contract negotiations with Ayers Associates for the design services of West Drexel Avenue from South 13th Street to South Howell Avenue.
Kirkowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 9 gets us to the License Committee, and I'd like to turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the Common Council report. Does anybody have any questions, cares, or concerns? All right. Seeing none, Kirkowski will make a motion to grant the various license requests as listed on the September 15, 2020 License Committee report.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
And item 10 is our vendor summary report for September 9th, 2020. If you would, please take a look. And any questions, feel free to ask. If there's no questions, comments, motion, please.
Clerk will move that the council approve the September 9th, 2020 vendor summary report in the total of $1,159,888.87.
Kirkowski, a second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
And that will get us to adjournment. If somebody would like to make the motion, please.
Clerk will move to adjourn.
Kirkowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Good. I'd like to thank everybody that tuned in, and particularly thank our staff, Kevin, the IT guy, Krista, our clerk, who filled in for Catherine. Great job there, Krista. And, of course, the staff that made everything so easy for us tonight. So thank you.